When you think of the Ohio Valley, you may not associate it with evil, but unfortunately, evil is something that no place is safe from. From the crimes that made national headlines to the ones that people seem to have forgotten, every victim deserves to be remembered. Join me as we go through the cases of the Ohio Valley. You can find the Ohio Valley True Crime Podcast on Stitcher, iTunes, and most podcast services.
Are your friends tired of hearing you talk about serial killers?
While you're at a party, have you randomly blurted out the odds of a person being murdered by a complete stranger?
Does your Hulu or Netflix only recommend documentaries on true crime?
If you have answered yes to one or more of these questions, you may have a problem.
And so do we. That's why we started our True Crime Podcast.
We are the hosts, Cam and Jen. We're lifelong best friends that love to talk about all things true crime. So we decided to start our own podcast, hoping to find others that share our passion.
You can find us on ourtruecrimepodcast.com, or you can download new episodes of Our True Crime Podcast on Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher, or any other places you download podcasts.
See you on Wednesdays!
Before we get started, I noticed that most of the other true crime podcasts out there have some type of disclaimer at the beginning, so I thought maybe Great Lakes True Crime should try the same. So here goes my attempt. This podcast contains true crime and other horrific subject matter in it, so don't let your kids listen. All right, here we go. From the South Shore of Lake Erie, this is Great Lakes True Crime. I'm your host, Steve. Thanks for joining us this week. It's been a few weeks since our last episode, so thanks for being patient. As always, if you can, please share this show on your social media platforms. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and leave us some positive reviews if you would. That's all we ask. We don't ask for any donations or Patreon accounts. We never will. So this week we're going from New York, where we were last episode, to Ohio and the middle of Lake Erie to the island of South Bass, where Put-in-Bay Village is. Put-in-Bay is a very popular vacation destination in Ohio's portion of Lake Erie, and it's often referred to as the Key West of the Midwest due to its reputation as a major party island. But aside from the partying, it's also home to many quaint family cottages, some nice parks, state parks, and million-dollar vacation homes. A lot of people choose to use golf carts to get around on the island. It's got that kind of a vacation feel to it. Put-in-Bay is the name of the village on Ohio's South Bass Island, and it's also the name of the township that encompasses the remainder of South Bass Island, as well as the entirety of Middle Bass and North Bass Islands. Of the three Bass Islands in Lake Erie, South Bass is by far the most highly developed. Put-in-Bay welcomes over 1 million visitors each year, even though the 2010 census revealed that the village is home to only about 138 full-time residents. In the War of 1812, Put-in-Bay became an important operation headquarters for the U.S. Naval Commander Oliver Hazard Perry. One of the 20 islands located in the western shallow end of Lake Erie, Put-in-Bay Harbor served as the launching point from which Perry set sail to defeat the British fleet commanded by Robert H. Barclay in the War of 1812, and specifically the Battle of Lake Erie in 1813. This historic battle and the American victory in it gave us that oft-quoted slogan, "We have met the enemy, and they are ours." The U.S. victory over Britain in the War of 1812 solidified the U.S. territory on the south side of the Great Lakes, and it paved the way for more permanent settlements, lighthouses, canals, and shipping throughout the Great Lakes. With the completion of the Erie Canal in 1825, The Great Lakes were finally connected by water to New York City via the Hudson River in Albany, New York. Today at Put-in-Bay, you can find a beautiful Greek Doric column known as Perry's Victory and International Peace Memorial, which marks the Battle of Lake Erie in the War of 1812. Perry's Monument, as it's commonly referred to, is the third tallest national monument in the United States after the Washington Monument and the Gateway Arch. The peace that came from this historic battle and war lasted well over 200 years now, and it's commemorated by this 352-foot granite monument. Guests who visit Put-in-Bay can ride an elevator to the top of the monument to an observation deck that offers spectacular views of Detroit, Toledo, and Cleveland skylines on a very clear day. Many people don't think of Ohio as an international border state, but in fact, Ohio has a 146-mile international border with Canada right in the middle of Lake Erie. Ohio's international border is actually 6 miles longer than California's international border. In total, the 3,987-mile border between Canada and the United States is the longest unprotected border in the world today. As mentioned earlier, Put-in-Bay is a bit of a party island with many bars and restaurants, including one establishment known as the Beer Barrel Saloon that claims to have the world's longest bar. There's a bunch of these bars and restaurants lining the streets of downtown Put-in-Bay. There's no shortage of entertainment on a Friday or Saturday evening in the summertime. And holiday weekends are especially busy on Put-in-Bay, and Labor Day weekend of 2011 was no different when 25-year-old Philip Masterson from Westlake, Ohio, headed out for a few days of partying and some much-needed rest and relaxation with some friends and relatives. Tens of thousands of other people descended upon the island that weekend to celebrate the unofficial end of summer. Early Sunday morning of that weekend, the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office was contacted and told that Phillips was missing. He hadn't been seen since late Friday night going into early Saturday morning. His family raced to the island to assist with the search for Masterson along with law enforcement from a number of agencies. Because when major events happen on the islands in Lake Erie, it's typical that many agencies will assist, including the Ohio Highway Patrol, various county sheriff's deputies, and sometimes other state and even federal law enforcement officials, such as the Coast Guard or Homeland Security Border Patrol. On Tuesday morning of that week, more than 48 hours after the missing person report was filed, Philip's brother Mark found Philip's body under a tarp in the woods behind the cottage he was renting at the Island Club Resort. He had been badly beaten and strangled. It was later determined by the coroner that Philip died from blunt force trauma and strangulation, although other reports have his cause of death as massive internal bleeding. Either way, he was the victim of some major foul play. His body was purposely hidden under the tarp to conceal it. Philip's family released this statement 2 days later after his body was found. Quote, "We are stunned and in deep shock over the loss of our beloved son, brother, fiance, and friend. Phil was a wonderful young man with a promising life before him. Words cannot express the sorrow we are feeling over this tragic, senseless act." Philip Masterson was the son of Georgianne and Dr. Kevin Masterson of Westlake, Ohio. He was a 2004 graduate of the prestigious St. Ignatius High School on the near west side of Cleveland, where he was a varsity wrestler. He had recently been training as an MMA fighter, mainly to help his brother Mark with Mark's more well-established professional MMA career. Philip's true goal was to become a Cleveland firefighter. He went to Notre Dame College for about a year after graduating from St. Ignatius. Then he switched to Cuyahoga Community College for firefighting and EMS courses. While waiting for a firefighter position to open up in Cleveland, he worked as a modular wall builder in Strongsville. Philip was described by friends and family as kind and generous, a gentle giant who rescued kittens, literally, and loved to give hugs to friends and relatives. Philip's death came just 10 days before he was to move into a new home in Cleveland with his fiancée, Aya. So what happened to Philip? Who would have killed such a kind and gentle man? Well, apparently Philip got into a verbal altercation with another man at a bar in Put-in-Bay on Saturday night. No punches were thrown at the bar, and the fight was limited to some verbal sparring with nothing physical happening. The man with whom he argued was 27-year-old Zachary Brody of Bowling Green in northwest Ohio, just south of Toledo. Brody was also an MMA enthusiast, and my theory is that Brody was used to pushing around much younger kids in the soft college town of Bowling Green. He rarely met a physical match to himself. According to an affidavit filed by the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office, a witness named Clifton Knote, Knote, not sure how you pronounce that, he said that around 4 a.m. Masterson came to the cottage that Brody shared with a group of other men and banged on the doors and windows, challenging Brody to a fight. Although none were present at the time of the fight, Masterson family members dispute Knote's claim. They say Masterson was the first one to defend a helpless person or help someone in need. In his statement, Knote said Brody told him that Philip took the first swing and that Brody grabbed his arm and put Masterson in a chokehold until he passed out. Then Brody said he hit Philip repeatedly in the face. Brody eventually got Philip in a chokehold, and after he passed out, Brody punched him, dragged his body by the ankles to a nearby woods, covered it with a tarp, and left Philip to die. He told me that he checked on him in the morning and that he was still breathing, said Knote in his statement to police. After that, Brody and his friends left the island. No one called the police or the Put-in-Bay EMS to tell them that a severely injured man was laying in the woods nearby. Ottawa County Sheriff Bob Bratton finds that disturbing, and so do I, very disturbing. What kind of a sick, cold-hearted person would do that? What a bunch of scumbags these guys were. Sheriff Bratton said Philip's life might have been saved if they had gotten him help immediately. After hearing about the discovery of the body, Knote and another man, Matt Brodsky, went to the Perrysburg Township Police Department, which is near Bowling Green in Wood County, and they made statements about what they knew. At 11:30 a.m. on the day after Philip's body was discovered, Zachary Brody was arrested for murder, voluntary manslaughter, felonious assault, and witness intimidation at his apartment in Bowling Green. Brody eventually pleaded guilty to the involuntary manslaughter of Philip and tampering with evidence. Ottawa County Common Pleas Judge Bruce Winters said that he had examined photos of Masterson's body and that it was the worst beating he had ever seen. He gave Brody, 27 years old at the time, the maximum penalty allowed by law. The judge said, "You never called police, you never called EMS, you took his wallet and ID to prevent identification, you secluded the body, and you went back to him several times while he was dying, and then left him there." Winters added that Brody had left the island and then returned and dragged the body further into the woods. The judge went on to say, "You brought a non-traceable cell phone, gathered your clothing and passport and money, and were preparing to flee when you were arrested." Early in the proceedings, the victim's mother, Georgianne Masterson, told the court, "Brody's a coward, a liar, and he is evil. I think evil has lived in him for a long time." She's probably correct on all counts. Let's take a minute to listen to a clip from WEWS Channel 5 in Cleveland when they were covering the news of Brody's plea agreement.
Man charged with killing a Northeast Ohio man last September on Middle Bass Island pleads guilty this afternoon to involuntary manslaughter. Zachary Brody also pleaded guilty to tampering with evidence. News Channel 5's Tracy Carlos joins us from Ottawa County. And Tracy, this was all part of a plea deal.
Yeah, Lee, that's right. You know, just a few hours ago, Brody admitted his guilt in this killing.
What is your plea to count one, involuntary manslaughter, a felony of the first degree? Guilty.
In a hushed courtroom this afternoon, 27-year-old Zachary Brody admitted to killing 25-year-old Phil Masterson. Brody pled guilty to involuntary manslaughter and 2 counts of tampering with evidence. Masterson was reported missing Sunday of Labor Day weekend 2011 while vacationing with family and friends on Put-in-Bay. Relatives found his body 2 days later. Today, for the first time, Brody described what happened in the early morning hours of September 5th. He said Masterson came to his rented cottage, started verbally and physically assaulting him. Brody told the judge he then began to fight back.
I began hitting him. I don't know how many times I did. But at some point, I realized that he wasn't fighting back anymore. And I stopped and went inside.
Masterson's family was visibly upset inside and outside of the courtroom.
Everything he said in there was a lie.
This is a fair and accurate resolution to the case that is a tragedy for both families. Clearly, the Brody family's hearts go out to the Mastersons family.
The family just wants to indicate that they think that this whole entire incident is a travesty. They understand that the defendant's family is affected by this as well. There's ill comparison between what the defendant's family is feeling and what they are feeling because their son is still here, theirs is not.
And Brody will be back here at the Ottawa County Courthouse on May 23rd for sentencing. Live in Ottawa County, Tracy Carlos, News Channel 5.
So that was a pretty good synopsis of the plea agreement, although they did make one mistake in the report. They said that it was on Middle Bass Island, when, of course, Put-in-Bay is on South Bass Island, as we said earlier. So in the end, Zachary Brody was sentenced to 16 years in prison, which again was the maximum allowed by law. Brody is currently inmate number A624615 at the Marion Correctional Institution in Marion, Ohio, and he's scheduled to be released on September 1st, 2027. In April 2016, Brody's buddy Cameron Paris of Brunswick, Ohio, pleaded no contest to one count of falsification, which is a first-degree misdemeanor, in Ottawa County Common Pleas Court. He was given a suspended 180-day sentence for his role. And that's our story of the Put-in-Bay murder, a truly senseless act of violence that tore apart several families and left a young man with his whole life ahead of him dead. So in a little happier news, for today's Netflix recommendation, if you're into true crime, you've probably already seen Evil Genius about the pizza bomber in Erie, Pennsylvania. If you haven't, though, I highly recommend it. It's about 4 parts, I think, and it's very well done. It's a bizarre, chilling case that occurred right here on the south shore of Lake Erie. So definitely check out Evil Genius. So that's it for today's episode of Great Lakes True Crime. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening, guys. And today we're going to let Chef Ramsay get the last word in tonight. What?
So I'm going to dance about it. I ain't no bitch, Chef. I don't give a I ain't no bitch. What?